Center in Pretoria. Yolisa, thank you so much for your time. What does the situation look like on your side, especially as those numbers come in the background?
Well, the numbers continue trickling in here, and a number of political party leaders have already joined us here at the Nerve Center or the Rock. You know, earlier on, I was actually saying one has to have better timing. Sometimes you look at your wardrobe and you think, actually, there are a lot of political parties there, so let me try to figure out what's the best color. I'm wearing good and Action SA and a bit of ANC, but I'm in conversation with Njamela Duarte, the Deputy General Secretary of the ANC. Mam Jesse, first things first, the voter turnout is low and extremely concerning. Is it concerning for you?
Absolutely. It should be concerning to all of us as citizens. Local government is where the tire hits the tar. It's where people meet government for the first time. So it's where you've put your voice to make sure that your issues are in fact dealt with through a relevant representative. And you might recall that the ANC had gone, we've done things very differently. We've asked communities to select their own councillors and to make sure that the person they select will be the voice of that particular community. So we are concerned on two fronts. One is that it is low. Secondly, that the youth vote didn't turn out as much as many of us and I've spoken to other political parties as well, had expected. So yes, it is of concern, and probably, you know, the way one must look at it is it's low, but it's also a place to start to build from, so that we do not become a nation of gloom and doom, as is required from us by so many. We want to look at this as how do you take it forward and how do you build from there.
So people have basically voted with their feet. They might be frustrated with one thing or the other, corruption, lack of service delivery. Your stronghold, like Soweto, whole number of people didn't come out, thousands of them, in fact.
In fact, that is, yes, of course. I think we must acknowledge and accept that the Eskom blackouts had a huge impact on Soweto in particular. And for that reason, our commitment is to really work extremely hard to resolve that question and that issue. Directly with Eskom, through the minister concerned and through the ANC-led government, we hope that they will continue to replenish the broken down instruments, little substations that have burnt out over time in the area, and fix that as a matter of urgency. But more importantly is to keep the grid stable. Without a stable grid, everybody will suffer, you know, and industry as well as domestic will suffer. So we will make sure that we keep what is our rightful duty to do, a much more vigilant eye on what's going on inside Eskom. We don't yet know quite what the problem is. It's not been clear. So elections have passed, now we can engage a little bit more robustly than we did during the elections.
Now, the IEC ordinarily would have about 80 days, give or take, to prepare for the elections. This time, you saying 90 days, give or take?
They ask for 90 days to have everything in place. That's 42 days. Look, we've been on the ground, and we can say there are issues around infirm structures that are put up as voting stations. We still think the IEC needs to improve on that. Obviously, there have been here and there questions of the zip machines, but we also understand that those machines will work even if there's no electricity, because they work from a SIM card. And that works from various cell providers. However, we think that if you're running such a magnitude of an election, and you have come out with relatively few disasters, it's not, and we've had many elections in this country, and the IEC has had many instances where tents have blown away, where things have not been quite as it should be. But overall, and I know that all of people say that, yes, but the IEC is very aligned to the ANC. I take exception to that. And I think it's an insult not only to the IEC, but to the integrity of the ANC as well. We believe that the IEC's independence must be protected, like any other institution in our country. So where there's criticism due, they must receive that criticism and respond to it. Where they must be more accountable, they must be more accountable. But for this election, overall, it hasn't been that bad. We worried a little bit about informal settlements. For instance, last night in one area in Orange Farms, the lights went out. And when it's dark in an informal settlement, nobody's going to walk around. But whose fault is that? Is that the IEC or the fault lies elsewhere? We finally did find out who should fix it, and it was fixed within 45 minutes. So I think, yes, there's always room for improvement. Let me put it that way.
Let's talk about coalitions quickly. The numbers are coming in thick and fast. Do you have any political parties that you're saying it doesn't matter what, we will not go into coalition with the DA, with the EFF, or you'll take things as they come?
We normally take a view that we discuss it with our National Executive Committee. The extended NWC, which is literally the NEC, will meet on Friday. The results will be put in front of that body of decision makers. Options will also be discussed, and then we'll emerge with what we should be doing. I can only say to you that it will have to be predicated upon a principled perspective. Parties whose principles are closest to the ANC. We've had some hard lessons in the last term, and we've learned from those hard lessons. But what we don't want to do is to be the party that creates a situation where the voters have voted and they haven't, in fact, been able to get the party of their choice, but they might well need a government. So you can't have a situation where you suddenly step out of the ring and say, no, we will not allow a government to exist here. That's wrong. So our discussions will be very political, very mature, and based on a principled perspective.
Now, South Africans, just one last thing, Ma'am Jesse. South Africans have given you their vote. It might not be in numbers that you used to, but you're still leading. What is it that you can tell them that you will do better this time around?
We've made a commitment that, having been on the ground, we've listened very hard this time. Water, electricity, housing, roads, the stuff that really makes your life work is what we are going to insist that our councillors make sure works. We're also going to be quite hard on the councillors. We've launched a mechanism which will monitor the number of times councillors meet with the community. Their first meeting has to be in February this year. Everywhere, throughout every ward where we won. Secondly, the report back must include what the council discusses and how that impacts on that particular community. The integrated development planning process, we don't want people to thumb suck or use fancy, high-paid consultants. It's the community that must decide what goes into that IDP, and therefore the budgets of the councils must be balanced and based on what can be done in the 5-year term that is there for that community. Above all, we want people to tell the people the truth. If you are unable to deliver on a particular demand there and then, say so. But give the people an opportunity to understand by when that will be done. This notion of a councillor drifts in and out, fancy car, the community just sees the dust as they drive through, no. We're also demanding that councillors know every person in the community and has a resident card for every household so that they know what's going on in that family, and when the people need help, they are there to offer that help. And this means that the councillors will have to understand that they must put up community committees, and they cannot work as individuals. So, we really are going to be very tough, and it's going to be difficult. We know that. We also know that there will be resistance, and we're ready for that resistance. It's not punitive. We will have to teach people to understand what a servant of the people means.
You're saying it's not punitive. I was actually going to ask you just now, can you make an undertaking to South Africans that you will have honest councillors and mayors, and if they are not, if they are thieves, you will get rid of them?
Can I say to you that already you must also say that our record in the last couple of months speaks for itself. Where people have done wrong, they have been removed. So yes, they will be. If there is evidence and if somebody appears in a court of law and is charged with any criminal offence, they are going to have to accept that they must take the responsibility and step aside. So, it's not going to be an easy road. This is a road for over 10 years, I might say. We haven't really travelled in this way, but we will travel it now. And we're unafraid. I think all government institutions, all civil servants, even civil servants in SOEs, must understand and accept that they are servants of the people. They don't own the people, and they are not their leaders, they serve them. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in a public broadcaster or in ESCOM or wherever. If the government is your shareholder, you are going to do the job of doing the job for the people.
Well, Mama Jess, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for affording us your time, and also we'll continue chatting as the results continue coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time as well.
Absolute pleasure. There you have it. Zizojikizinto. That's what Mamu Jesse Duarte, the Deputy General Secretary of the ANC, is saying. They're going to hold their councillors, ward councillors, mayors responsible. They want honest people. They're going to get rid of thieves. We will be here to visit them again and ask them the same questions if they are indeed doing that. Let's take it now back to the studio.
Thank you so much. And